be a lot of fun. We have a really fun group, and I think I've told a couple of you that have someone who attends from San Jose, and she told us that she stopped going to her San Jose group, which is amazing because it's Silicon Valley, and instead she comes to our group because we're way more fun. So that's a good sign. A good sign. Okay. Well, we'll get started. Ashley has to be someplace in East Coast time. I'm really grateful that both of them last joined us later in the evening. And do you want to start record?
We're recording.
Okay. Welcome everyone, and this is one of the more fun chapters of all of the many Women in 3D Printing chapters. We have a really great group, and it's really informal and casual, but we also want to educate and help people learn more about what the community is doing. This is co-hosted by the New Mexico Technology Council, and Mary Timon is here. Mary, is your Women Technology Group meeting this month?
Yes, Sarah, the Women in Technology Group is meeting next Thursday in person in the courtyard at Fat Pipe, 200 North Broadway. So we're going to have an opportunity to meet personally the honorees from this year's Women in Technology celebration, which we have one on the line, Shelley, and then of course Sarah. Hopefully you'll be able to join that as well next Thursday at 4:30, I believe it starts.
I'll try. And I was an award winner last year and was a judge this year, and was really happy to see Shelley win an award. And that will be in Albuquerque at Fat Pipe. And if you haven't been there, it's a really great facility and does a lot of good work. Next month, we will be meeting in person in Santa Fe, our grand opening of our new color Innovation Center at the Santa Fe Higher Ed Center that is run by Santa Fe Community College. Is opening in collaboration with our role as one of the distributed manufacturing sites for the MIT Fab Lab Fab Foundation annual meeting of our 2,000 Fab Labs around the world. So we will be having workshops and panels. Vince Kabulek from Meow Wolf, one of the founders of Meow Wolf, is going to be on one of our panels. We have Rosie the Riveter, which is a 8-foot sculpture, 3D printed sculpture is going to be unveiled. We have a 3D printing art show. We have a drone workshop that Jed and Alec, our apprentices, our registered apprentices, there's Jed waving, are going to be conducting. And we've got the New Mexico Tech Mobile Fab Lab and the Forest Scientific Mobile Fab Lab coming. So it's going to be a whole week of really fun stuff. And our Women in 3D Printing will be on Wednesday the 11th, and I think it's at 5:30. 4. No, it's at 4. It's 4 to 5:30. And hope those of you who are in state can drive over and see us, and those of you who are out of state would take that opportunity to come and meet Santa Fe. So that's kind of all the business we have to conduct. Because I'm so excited to have you talk to us about your work. Ashley works in, as you can see by how gorgeous it is, beautifully put together. Coming from a woman who, like, it's a struggle to get my lipstick on. She works in fashion and is going to tell us about her work for a number of really cool brands as well as her own work. And then really us to conversation. So Ashley, take it away.
Okay, so hi everyone. My name is Ashley Allen. I'm a 3D printer, 3D designer, fashion photographer, and a 3D printing design entrepreneur in residence. And I work as a 3D printer for Tapestry, which is the parent company of Coach, Kate Spade, and Stuart Weitzman. So I do 3D printing for all three brands. So basically, how I got into 3D printing was an accident. It was a happy accident. So I've been doing fashion photography basically my whole life. And I went to school for fashion photography, and right before I graduated, I took a 3D printing class, and it was a part of a 3-part program. And in the first class, you learn the basics of 3D printing, but then it's really based on innovation. And then at the end of the class, I started 3D printing my own things. And the first thing I ever designed, 3D printed and 3D modeled was a full-size 3D printed guitar. And at that point, I was like, ooh, I can make whatever I want. And at that point, I was hooked. I was at that 3D printing lab every day. I didn't know how I didn't get kicked out. The janitor saw me at 4 o'clock in the morning. Oh, why is she still here? Should I call someone? So then my professor saw me working on the guitar, and they were like, oh, you're going to be a lab tech. I'm like, no, I'm not. And they were like, well, you're here all the time, and you know, you use all the materials, so now it's time to give back. And I was like, oh, okay, fair enough. So then I was, in my last semester of college, I was a lab tech, and I learned how to use SLA 3D printers. So first class was FDM, second class is SLA. And then I graduated. So I was like, okay, I don't know what to do now because I did photography my whole life, but now I like 3D printing. So that summer, I worked as a 3D printing design consultant. So I worked on a couple of really cool projects for a client. So I 3D modeled and 3D printed a render of a building without a scanner. So that was interesting. And then the other project was I had to 3D print a water filtration system using flexible materials for a scientist. So that was the other project. And then I was like, okay, well, it's the end of summer. Now I really like 3D printing, so I don't know what to do. And then I decided to go back to school to get my 3D printing certificate. And then now I work at Tapestry as a 3D printer. And I'm also a 3D printing design entrepreneur resident. At the school I went to 3D printing for. And at Tapestry, I basically post-process all the 3D prints, plan prints for 3D printing, fix files for 3D printing, post-process 3D prints. So that's kind of like the scope of my job. And we 3D print hardware, things that go in bags, jewelry, things of that nature. And that's what I do for Tapestry. But outside of work, I'm a 3D printing design entrepreneur resident, so I'm in the process of creating my own 3D printed jewelry company. So here are some of my earrings. And that also got into it as a happy accident as well. I needed a last minute gift for my friend, and I was like, okay, I'll design her a pair of earrings, sure, whatever. And I gave them to her, and she really liked them. But then I started wearing them, a different pair, not the same pair. And people came up to me and was like, oh, I really like your earrings. Like, how can I get a pair? And then it got to the point where someone stopped me on the street, asked me where I got my earrings from. And I'm like, I want to buy a pair right now. I was like, oh, okay, I might be onto something. So that's what I'm working on now. And I've also been getting into 3D modeling and 3D designing footwear. I've been 3D printing a lot of footwear. So that's basically what me and then what I'm doing and what I do at Tapestry.
So what is Coach 3D printing?
Yeah, so Coach is 3D printing hardware. We 3D print the things that go on the bag. So like Coach, like a Kate Spade or Weitzman, it's all kind of like the same thing. So I do 3D printing for all three of the brands. So yeah, hardware that goes on the bags, like, you know, like zippers, logos, things like that. Then we 3D print jewelry, you know, charms, things like that that go on the bag. Some things for footwear. So anything basically anything hardware. So yeah.
But is it fast enough? I mean, are you able to, do you have industrial printers where you can produce enough quantity for, I mean, Coach is a big brand.
Yeah, so we have a lot of printers, but we mainly use the Formlabs 3D printers. They're really reliable and it can print a lot of objects, like, you know, in a decent amount of time. So we use the Formlabs 3D printers.
Cool.
Would you like me to bring up your website, Ashley, so people can at least see that? And if you want to give me any directions, I can.
Yeah, sure, totally.
This is your website. If you want to
Yeah,
walk
so
me through anything here.
sure. Okay, so if you scroll down a little bit, so if you click on tapestry right there, yep. So these are some final products of the Kate Spade rings that 3D printing was used along the way. So this is kind of like what the end product looks like on the website, and 3D printing was used to create the final products. So that's kind of like some of the things that we do there 3D printing wise.
So were you on the Form Labs, were you 3D printing the final product or the molds for it to be cast?
Oh no, we don't do casting. We just 3D print the prototypes. So these are kind of like the footwear and sneakers that I'm getting into. But yeah, we don't do molding or anything there. We just 3D print the prototypes. So I wish I had a picture. I can't show it, but basically that strawberry ring is just, if you can imagine it in like gray and plastic, that's what we 3D print.
So when you say the prototypes, do you mean a prototype that then is produced in volume, or you're 3D printing the final product?
Oh no, we're not 3D printing the final product. Yeah, if you
Oh,
actually go back up, so that's my manager Tomer. But yeah, a little bit more to the first. Yeah, there. That's what it looks like basically. If you could
oh,
just imagine the strawberry and that gray, that's exactly what it would look like. And then we got the 3L. So so now we're 3D printing footwear. And then, so basically what my responsibilities are is to plan the files for footwear using, Formlab software. And then my manager goes in and then he post-processes the 3D prints. So that's kind of like we do there for footwear. We just started getting into footwear.
cool.
Mhm.
Hi, Ashley. My name is
Hi,
Andrea.
Grace.
Thanks for sharing.
Mhm.
So for the hi, so for the rings, for example, the final you're doing the prototyping. Is the final product then injection molded, or do you know what technology is used to create the final product?
So actually, I'm not sure like how that all happens. I basically just get the file and 3D print it. I'm not sure what goes on after that, but it's just my responsibility just to 3D print the prototypes.
Oh, okay. I'm just trying to understand your process since there are it's beneficial depending upon the final technology that's used for manufacturing to include that in the way you design the file or you edit the design. You
Yeah,
mentioned that you do some of the design work also?
no, so I don't do any design work. Like, as someone is just like, oh, here you go, happy birthday, here's a 3D file, and then I get the file and I just 3D print it. I don't get to change anything. I just have to fix the file for 3D printing.
But in your own jewelry, you're designing.
Yes, I design everything outside of, my job, but like for work, I don't actually get to design anything. Hopefully in the future, but for now, I just 3D print the files.
Cool.
And so are you using the Formlabs printer for your jewelry also, Ashley?
Yes. So, since I'm a 3D printing design entrepreneur resident at Montclair State University, I use their 3D printer. So I use a lot of FDM 3D printers. I also use the Formlabs printers.
Okay, great. And what is the material that you're most commonly printing in for your jewelry?
Yeah, I usually, honestly, I'd say gray because I think gray is great because the quality is just so high. And like if I were to print it on like an FDM 3D printer, it just wouldn't be the same. So I use gray a lot for prototyping.
And for your jewelry,
Okay, thank you.
and for your own jewelry, what material are you using?
Gray for Formlabs. It really just use gray.
Mm-hmm. And that's what your earrings are?
So I actually 3D printed this on an FDM printer in clear PLA. So yeah.
Mhm. We
Do you
recently in
have,
our got some really pretty filament. Alec, remind me what the green one that you made the bracelets from. Remind me what the green one is.
Yeah, it's this company in the Netherlands. I have to I'll look it up real quick and get you the name, but it's made out of they recycle plastic water bottles and turn it into filament. But they have a ton of really unique colors.
Yeah, the colors I thought were really pretty for jewelry. They had kind of a metallic look to them. And
Yeah,
maybe you put it in the chat.
definitely.
Cool.
That would be fun. Well, thank you so much, Ashley. And Ashley and I belong to two other groups, so we have talked a fair amount, but I didn't really know before tonight, you know, kind of the intricacy of what you were doing. And I'm sorry you have to go off to something else, but stay as long as you can.
Yeah, I will.
Cool.
Can I have one quick question?
Mhm.
Hi, this is Jeanette from Alabama. Hey, Ashley.
Hi.
I have one question. So
Mhm.
do you have some guitar to play for us? How did the 3D printed guitar go?
Okay, so let's start prototype because basically what happened, I was working on it for a long time, and then I started working at Tapestry. So then I decided that okay, I was working at Tapestry a lot, but then I randomly came across like getting into 3D printing jewelry, so I wasn't expecting that. So I plan on coming back to it. It's just been really hard going to the lab I use because of the pandemic. So once I'm able to go back, it's over. I'm gonna finish it.
Very cool.
And then you'll have to play for us.
Yes.
Absolutely. I can't wait.
Cool.
Ashley,
Well,
this is Shirley from Albuquerque. And just a quick question, what do you see the future of jewelry making and fashion in 3D printing? Do you think that it's something high growth? Here, I know in New Mexico, we have a lot of 3D printed forms that we're making for silversmithing, but I'm just kind of curious what you're seeing.
Yeah, that's so cool. So yeah, I definitely think like what I've heard is it's kind of like I guess it's like the digital versus traditional. I feel like a lot of people are well, maybe a while ago were kind of opposed to like this new way of like 3D printing wax resin and then casting it. But now I feel like, companies like Form Labs, they have a lot of wax resins and things like that. And I think that people are now like realizing that, you can like kind of create these complex designs and 3D print them. And I kind of feel like it's heading towards more 3D printed jewelry because, Form Labs, for example, keeps coming out with a lot of new wax resins. They just came out with another one that's for like super detail and like intricate, like small objects. So I definitely think the materials are going to get a lot better. I definitely think it's going to be a lot easier. I'm not familiar with traditional jewelry, so don't roast me. But I definitely think that it's definitely heading to 3D printed jewelry using 3D printing like wax resins. I think that's going to become more widely popular. And also like what's that institute is like the Gem Institute of America. They now like I've watched a couple of webinars like over the pandemic where they show people how to 3D print and like give directions on that. And now there's classes you can take on that too. So I definitely think it's going to be a more common thing and it's only going to get better and better.
so Shelley, one of the things that we see with 3D printing molds for jewelry is that it reduces the amount of time that it takes the artist to create a mold by hand. So I think most of you in this group have seen our ring that was designed by an artist in Santa Fe of the Taos Pueblo. and there's so much detail in it. And she can do it by hand, but she learned CAD design on, and we 3D print the molds on the Form Labs machines for her. But it just saves her time, and instead she can spend that time marketing her jewelry. And it's also, besides the fact that it opens up the design capabilities, it also speeds up processes for the designers and allows them to speed up their process and then use their time on other aspects of their jewelry business.
Mhm.
So it has both an aesthetic and a business, benefit there. Any other questions for Ashley?
Ashley, I do have questions. Is there a place we can go to find pictures of your jewelry?
Yeah, it's on my website. I'm sorry, I should have brought that up while you were on my website. I only have a few, but I hope, to go back to the 3D printing lab soon. Like hopefully soon. We'll watch how the pandemic is going.
Well, and Ashley also put her LinkedIn connection in the chat. And so is your website in the connected in your LinkedIn?
Yes, it's on there, but if you click on 3D modeling, 3D printing in the second rectangle where the 3D printers are, 3D modeling and 3D printing. Yeah, right there. If you keep scrolling to the right, sorry, there's a lot of sneakers. That's one pair. Now these are also some prototypes I've been working on. And then that's another pair. I just put a couple examples, but I have a lot more in the works. I just need to go back to this 3D printing lab and just finish everything.
Cool. That's beautiful.
Thank you.
Well, thank you for making the time for us tonight.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Yeah. So, and we'll probably see you at another meeting.
Mhm.
And so Alex's comment about our material that I like leads us beautifully into Buzz, who is our guru of all things sustainable in 3D printing. And Buzz, do you have slides?
I don't have slides. I'm so used to talking about myself, though. This will be no problem. So, nice work, though, Ashley. By the way, legit jealous of the fashion. My wife got me into Project Runway, and that's now I'm in on the whole fashion thing. So,
Thank you.
Oh yeah, look at the hair. I mean, you look so fashionable. Yeah.
I know. I definitely felt pretty underdressed. It's like,
We did post your website in the chat window as well. So if people want to find your website, it's in that chat window. Yeah, and we'll do the same for you. Buzz, if you want, anytime you want me to bring up your website, let me know. I'll just have it on standby.
yeah, sure. Thanks. And actually, thanks, Alec. You found the reflow guys before I did. I'm aware of those guys. I dig their materials and their schooling. And there's, we've been doing eco-friendly filaments now since 2015, and we started getting into 3D printing back in like 2011, 2012, and just sort of try to find our way into the space. And then really just through blind luck, actually through a dental hygienist when they're trying to talk to you when you have all that stuff in your face. She mentioned a close friend of hers worked in plastics when I told her we were doing 3D printing. And this guy had developed a bioadditive that worked with certain plastics to help them degrade in the waste stream, basically just providing a food source for bacteria in that environment. So reached out to him, connected, and we were able to take his bioadditive technology, and he was able to tweak it a little bit to get it to work with some amorphous plastics that we use in 3D printing, like ABS, PETG, and some others. So we first got into the space in manufacturing, making really the first sort of eco-friendly ABS filament. At the time, ABS was far more prevalent in the space, more so than it is now. Now it's, PETG's kind of overtaken ABS in that side. But, there's this whole sort of conflict for us inside of 3D print, because we're very much driven by this sort of, mode to go eco-friendly. We launched our product on cardboard spooling. It took a lot of time to sort of develop that. And we're not the first, and we're not the only ones doing that now. There's a lot more out there, including the reflow guys. But it's been a real sort of adventure in this 3D print space to try to develop. It sort of led into all these other sort of material development projects, trying to take bioplastics, try different blends to get different properties out of them, like, maybe more flexible materials or nylon mimics, ABS mimics that are still bioplastic based and not petroleum, that are still, fall into the biodegradable category in the plastics world. I mean, it's still plastic, but at the same time, it does degrade a lot faster and under the right conditions in a commercial compost or an active landfill facility. And that's really sort of where we found our kind of niche in the space. That said, we still have customers that want other things like high temp materials like Peak and Ultim, and so we've started adopting some of these other materials as well. And we're still, I feel like we're always sort of trying to pivot and navigate our way through this place of being green, offering a wide variety of materials. But for me, it's really just sort of encouraging to see what's happening out there in the space. Without talking about ourselves too much, there's other manufacturers like Filamentive, who's a brand out of the UK that does a lot of recycled materials, also on cardboard spooling. And in addition to the reflow guys, I found these guys are really they're called fishy filaments, and they actually make filament from ocean plastic, and really dig what they're doing. So it's, for us, it's really all about trying to find every way we can to go green. And this year, I got to say, it's been actually a real challenge for us. COVID has certainly caused a lot of problems, but for us, because we use some exotic compounds in our materials, we rely a lot on compounding certain materials. And last year, it's funny how we're trying to be eco-friendly to sort of help with slowing the stem of climate change, and yet climate change has actually greatly impacted our business this year, because last year a compounding plant down south was taken out by a hurricane, and that's caused a bottleneck in plastics compounding. And there's the beetle in Canada that's helped cause the lumber shortage, has made it harder to get a hold of our cardboard spooling than usual. The lead times on that are now 12 weeks instead of the normal 3. And even then, it's a struggle just keeping this going, trying to maintain this green philosophy. We're still out of stock on a few materials while we're waiting for stuff to get compounded, but it's I wouldn't do it any other way. I mean, I'm psyched to be doing it, and it feels good at the end of the day for sure. And our kids love it. But there you go. That's the shortest version I got of the story.
Well, Buzz, we love our 3D print life materials, and Jed has written all of these, reviews, and he's
thank you.
Really excited about PETG. And I often get makers who will say to me, "Oh, but it's so much cheaper." But there's that part of me that really wants a material of very high quality that's not going to clog not having to freak out that I build plastic parts. And and as we all know, the failures are unbelievable. So we try to recycle them into art. I try and donate our failures to the art department at the community college so they can make collages and stuff. But so it's still waste. And so when I first met you at actually Fab 11 in that Sherry Lassiter ran, and it's such an incestuous world here, in 2015 in Boston at MIT, and Buzz crashed the symposium at Symphony Hall and tracked me down to give me some samples. And and we tried them, and I just really love the material. And Jed, you have questions, I think. Go ahead, go for it.
So first of all, big fan, kind of fanboying a bit. At the lab, we're building. There's this open source printer called the Voron V2, and it's like it can print a 3D benchy in 30 minutes instead of 3 hours. It's enclosed, uses ABS. We're actually building it out of your Eco ABS, the pink and the baby blue, and I'm super happy with it. I made parts for a client out of your BioPEG. My only complaint with it, and I love it, but some of the, like when the nozzle's going, because it's so clear, sometimes in the middle of the print, you'll see little streaks of burnt material because PETG is so stringy,
Right.
One thing, a question I have is every time I see an eco filament, there's always the caveat that PLA is only biodegradable in an industrial composter. But I've also heard that if you just have like a compost pile in the back, you can put something like 30% of plastic in there, a PLA, and it won't hurt your microbiome. Do you have any tips for someone who wants to get rid of their millions of failed prints without,
it's such yeah, look, it's a great question. It's a tough question to answer. So much depends on your local municipality, and what they have available. PLA is one thing, okay? I mean, PLA in a compost, PLA requires heat to help it degrade. Whereas, the bioadditive technology we have in the ABS and the PETG really provides a food source for bacteria, not just in a compost, but also in what's called an active landfill, which has a high amount of bacteria leachate content in the environment there inside that landfill. And everything, how long it'll degrade depends on each individual landfill. But just to give you an idea, commercial compost, there's 300 maybe in the US where active landfills that use that high leachate bacteria content, there's close to 5,000 of those. But still, again, when you throw something at the trash, in the trash, you're sort of at the mercy of the local government, right? And where that is going. As far as a backyard compost, we haven't tried anything like that yet. I haven't even tried PLA, and I'm just not set up for it. I'd love to see somebody do it and see, how it works.
Me and my partner are planning on setting up a compost in the back. If you want to send us some PLA to test, I'll print out benches and throw them in there.
Yeah, I'd love it. No, that'd be great. Definitely.
Cool.
It's funny. So like NatureWorks is the PLA producer in the US, right? And this is, I don't want to get political or anything here, but so there's ASTM testing on biodegradability, and that's how we sort of determine what is biodegradable. And NatureWorks a few years ago, probably 10 years ago now at least, sort of changed the goalposts on what is biodegradable and what isn't in plastic. So the universal one for biodegradable is an ASTM test. It's a D6400 test. And about 80% of the people on the committee that decides the parameters for these tests are employed by NatureWorks.
It's like the stock market. So incestuous.
Right, exactly. But in any case, bye, Ashley.
Bye, Ashley.
Thanks for having me. I didn't want to interrupt. Feel free to connect with me. It's so great meeting everyone. Thanks for having me again. And I'll see you soon.
See ya.
We'll see you.
Yeah, but no, listen, Jed, definitely happy to send you some material to test. We've got, if you know anyone that does testing in seawater, let me know.
I'm in New Mexico, man.
Yeah, I know.
I can make some salty water for you, but that's about it.
Well, it's funny, we had like this 8th grade class in San Diego test our Dura material in seawater, and they found that it degraded by 10% a month in seawater. So I'm trying to get some official sort of testing on that to see how it works. But, it's, I don't know what to say. I mean, we're just, happy to send you anything to give it a go in the backyard compost to see how it works.
I'll get your email later. We haven't set up the compost yet. We're getting it ready for kids to play in and dogs. So compost is a little later, but I'm definitely thinking by the end of the year.
Okay. All right. And listen, if you like the BioPet G, we do have one we're working on now that is, it'll feature the same bioadditive component, just with a 100% recycled PET G. So using the same recycled drinking bottles.
Another cool thing is you guys are actually in the United States, because I don't care how sustainable it says, if you have to ship it, 10,000 miles by sea or something, it's not sustainable.
Yeah, it doesn't help the carbon footprint, right? Definitely.
Yeah.
So, and it's funny because we have some materials from Filamentive that do a lot of recycled materials. They're out of the UK. At the moment,
we've been across the pond.
It is now. We're working on producing. There's 3 of their materials now that we're going to look at producing here in the States. In our shop, that'll help us out a lot. They have a recycled PLA, a recycled PET G, and a matte PLA that it's gorgeous, like matte finish on it. Cool. That we're looking to try to do here.
Do you think there's going to be any other colors coming out for the BioPet G other than clear? And does it come in black too?
Actually, yeah, we're expanding that to 7 colors in the coming year. We're just getting some more bioadditives shipped in to the facility to get started on production. We've got to do a couple of trials, but we'll be adding a light gray, a dark gray, a red, and a blue at least. So we'll go from 3 to 7. Yeah, it's every time you add a color, you're just adding a ton of cost and pain in the neck.
Another question about the added colors, and you may not be able to answer it, but is there going to be any, if there's any, because I know that if you take like ABS, the white ABS is more brittle than the other colors because of all the additives they have to add to make it white. Is there, maybe is that why you 3D Print Life has kind of a smaller color selection than some other filament manufacturers? I don't know. Is there, I don't know what my question is. Never mind.
Well, no, it's fine. In color production, we went crazy on some of originally on the Enviro ABS and the Playfab line, going up to like 18 colors. And it was great, but it gets harder to manage. I mean, eventually, someone always wants the random, lavender color, which I love, but, every time you go to produce it, when you're dealing with, just capacity in general, and, everyone wants black, white, and gray and natural, those are the colors that everybody prints with. So I know it's crazy. I love all the pinks and the light blues. I love those pastel-y colors, but that's not what people are buying out there. A lot of times I run into in education where honestly, they don't want a lot of color variants available for the students because they just want to keep everything, stable across the board.
That's weird.
I know.
Okay, last question, Jed.
Not even done. It's not even a question. I think we're going to be using your polypropylene for our drone class. And
let me know how that goes. Yeah,
I will.
Sweet.
I'm super excited. All right, I'm done. Sorry, everyone.
And Jed,
well, if no one else has any questions, you can come back. It's fine.
Call Buzz anytime. We have his direct line.
It's true.
Anybody else have questions? I think Buzz's, philosophy is just so great, and I love the cardboard packaging, and I love that you plant a tree, and yeah, it's all good. Can you talk for a second about the algae-based?
Yes, yeah, thank you. Yeah, because I had it in my head at one point during that, but yeah, one of the materials. Now, we didn't invent this material. It was originally developed by Algix, but we've since taken over that brand. And we still work with them to source actually the algae content. So what they're doing is taking nuisance algae out of the environment, and then we're compounding that with not a standard grade of PLA. It's kind of a special grade to get it to work, and creating a PLA filament from that. And it creates this really awesome earthy color palette. I'm completely out of stock right now. It's driving me insane. That's one of the things I'm waiting on compounding for, is some of the plastic for this line. But I'm hoping between now and September, we'll have it back in. But the color palette there is great. There's a little bit of a funky odor that comes from that material because of the algae content. Some people are less affected and some are more affected by it. But it's really popular, and for good reason. I mean, it's more sustainable coming in, and it's also still, of course, sustainable going out. There's some cool features with that material too. It actually adds nitrogen to the soil. So if you use it as a potted plant or like a little stake in the ground, it will actually help with all this, the word for it, nitrogen something or other. I can't think of it now.
That's very cool.
Fixation, I think that's what it is.
Yeah, it is called that. But that's very cool. That's a real selling point.
It is. It's really popular. It's unfortunately it's not a great material for end use parts. It's very much more ornamental. It makes PLA, which is brittle by nature, and it's actually a little more brittle than standard PLA would be. But really gorgeous prints can come off of that.
And you're right. The color palette is really organic and very, very natural looking. So it doesn't look quite as, shocking as, some of the other plastic colors. I really like the colors a lot.
Yeah, me too. Love the material. Dying to get it back in. It's been driving me insane. It's just been one of those, I'm going to blame climate change and COVID for that one.
Yeah. Any other questions for Buzz?
I have one. Hey Buzz. I was wondering, you sounds like you do a lot of weird materials. What's the weirdest material you've printed in, or maybe a weird material you've dreamed of printing in?
Oh, that's a good one. Well, let's see. Weirdest material that we've wanted to do. We're trying to do some really. We've got a Yoga Flex material that is it's a semi-flexible. It's another one of these Frankenstein blends that we have, but it's got a kind of a higher shore hardness, and we're trying to get it to print in more of like a fully flexible profile, sort of like the original Ninja Flex. That one is really brutal to work with. Just extruding it is a pain. Like, hey, look at that.
Ninja Flex in action.
Yeah.
No, it's their 3D Print Life Yoga Flex on the sunglasses.
I have some, but I've never printed in it.
I'm sorry, that was a faux pas.
It's all right. No, don't worry about it. I mean, originally, like, we almost didn't want to even make a flexible just because at the time, I mean, Ninja Flex kind of, owns that niche in the space, but we just wanted an eco-friendly alternative to the TPU out there. Yeah. And
plus, aren't you guys like $10 cheaper than the Ninja Flex for real?
I didn't say that, but that is true. Yeah.
That's cool.
And Alec and Jed have been working on, for those of you who don't know, are registered apprentices in our lab through the U.S. Department of Labor. And they've been working on this eyeglass project that was MK's brainstorm of having glasses that were adaptable, so that a manufacturer could make one size, and then it has adjustments, which we should have a talk on that sometime, guys. But it has adjustments, it has little screws, and so you can make the nose frame, the nose piece, go in and out if you have a big head or a small head, and there's all kinds of cool stuff. So they were experimenting with the Yoga Flex and with other. And for me, who breaks my, the arms, these things all the time, the Yoga Flex was really great because now I don't break them because they bend.
So I never pay more than like $10 for a pair of shades. They're just disposable. I break them all the time.
Cool. Anything else for Buzz?
I just have to say really quick, but weren't these glasses actually Alec? Alec, was this your original design? That's what I thought.
Yeah,
we like glasses, I guess. Go ahead, Alec. I'll let you. Yeah.
Yeah, I designed those a while ago, but they, I didn't originally design them to be printed with the flexible materials, but then once we did it with them, they turned out really good, a lot better with the flexibles. So
yeah, I really like it in the flexible material.
Yeah, I gotta say, I mean, a lot of the stuff we've been doing is really just kind of luck, to be fair. I mean, we just got lucky with yoga. We got lucky with our Fab material, which is kind of a tough PLA. It's a PLA PHA blend. And we just kind of got lucky and nailed it out of the gate and hit a home run with the properties of it. It's really strong, high temperature resistance compared to normal PLA. It's got a little bit of more, pliability to it. And, you know, yoga is really the same. I mean, we just said, hey, let's try this and see what happens. And that's kind of how it came to be. We wanted, as long as we stick with using green materials, then we'll try anything. And we've been lucky to date.
Last one, Buzz.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. So this, yes, this is not our material. It's a copper 3D material, but we are the U.S. distributor for it. So this material has a copper oxide additive that is blended with PLA. It's not easy to do, but we got, and we're not the ones that developed this initially. So we're just, you know, we're carrying it, but it's a great material. It has antimicrobial, antibacterial properties. Initially, the first batch of stuff we got in from when we first landed this stuff last year, I mean, we were selling like, you know, 300 spools a day of this when COVID hit, and blew out all the US stock. And then found out that copper 3D had failed to register with the EPA. So we had to take down all the antimicrobial documentation on it. It's passed in Europe and in other countries, but it still hasn't gone through EPA clearance. It's just the additive itself. You know, that additive technology is registered with EPA as a material that works, but copper 3D, the company, is not. So it's kind of a, you know, dotted I's and crossed T's situation, but it's okay. I mean, but the material has actually been tested against coronavirus and performed really well against it. It's an expensive material at, you know, $96 a spool for 750 grams, but it does have that added benefit of being antimicrobial. It's not the only one out there that I've seen, but it is definitely one that I've seen the testing data done by the Pasteur Institute in Paris, and it does have an effect against COVID. So, you know, at some point when we're able to, you know, get the actual language down on this thing and be able to market it properly, I'm hoping it'll start moving again. But I mean, there's a ton of applications for that. You know, masks is one, but I think about cell phone cases, door handles. I mean, you name it. Anything that has you know, high contact surface areas are ideal for it.
And the research that I read, Buzz, when we were working on this with the Chilean guys, is that you know, the coronavirus stays active for like, I don't know, it was 24 or 48 hours on the surface, but on the antimicrobial copper embedded material, it was deactivated in 4 hours. So it's not like it deactivates it like that, but still, it's so much faster than if it was just sitting there.
It is, and now the additive itself that they use has been tested against COVID and will kill, you know, 99% of the viral load within a few seconds. But that's just the concentrated additive by itself and not in the filament form. So that's where the, you know,
can't put against the human body because it's too. It needs to be integrated into something else. But
yeah, but it has, you know, but it is, it has at least passed. Oops, sorry, my phone alarm going off. Even when you got to do not disturb, it still finds a way. But yeah, no, but it has at least passed some skin contact testing. Originally, it was designed to be used in, you know, like hospital environments. This is pre-COVID. We first started carrying this material, and it was, you know, designed for kids to have 3D printed braces that are antibacterial, because those, you know, anything like a, you know, prosthetics and braces like that are high, you know, sort of high traffic zones for bacteria.
Yeah. No, I think that's a fascinating material, because we all know, you know, COVID is, you know, winding down in the states that have good vaccination rates, like New Mexico, but, you know, the next virus is on the horizon, and you know, the more that the materials that you guys develop can help us with those PPEs, I mean, the better off we all are. So
yeah, absolutely. I wish we invented that thing. I mean, we're a long way from that, but I'm really happy to have it available. You know, even if we can't market it the way it should be yet, I mean, it doesn't matter. I mean, it's still effective.
Yeah, it is. And I have to say that, you know, in addition to our, you know, love for what 3D Print Life is doing for the environment and the thought that you're putting into it. I mean, it's just really good filament. And, you know, I think both Alec and Jen and MK would agree that, you know, we're really happy with it. And I feel really good about it. You know, if it was a great environmental filament, but it couldn't print well, you know,
Right.
You know, you really have to come back to quality. But that you have both is really, really powerful, and we're so appreciative to work with you. So Buzz, to come full circle, is now bundling our digital badges with their printers, so that's exciting. And we just launched that like 3 weeks ago, and so you'll see more about that. And that's one of our fun projects. So we're going to move to K through 12, and our two of our dear friends. So Shelley, who is here in Albuquerque, is going to talk first about the programs that she has developed locally for STEM education. And we'll start with Shelley, and then we'll move over to Lassiter, who is a really big national program in STEM education. So Shelley, take it away.
Well, thanks, Sarah. I appreciate it. So 3D printing and education. There's so much here and so much to learn about, and I am sure that so many of you have experiences that I'd love to hear more about. And so just to tell you a little bit about us, Be Greater Than Average is actually a business that we run. I work with a group of student leaders that run 3D printing, drone and robotics camps and other STEM programs for kids. So we like to say they're for kids and by kids, and teaching along the way there. And we collaborate with our nonprofit R4 Creating, and creating through collaboration, creating sustainable organizations and teaching our young kids, building that STEM workforce pipeline. And I love 3D printing. A lot of times people get on here and share their 3D printing story. Honestly, I started in robotics just because my kids, I thought it would be a really great thing for them to do. My background is in workforce education and workforce development, and so I wanted to share experiences with my own kids. And that has grown into sharing my experiences with literally thousands of kids, both here in New Mexico and across the country. And so we fortunate to partner with a lot of different organizations, including Sandia National Labs, who 3 years ago at our Robotics Training Institute that we organize, they taught 3D printing, and the kids built their own 3D printers and learned how to use them. From that starting point, what we do really well at our organization is to take what the kids know and then turn it into teaching other kids those things. And so that has turned into teaching kids how to assemble and use 3D printers and 3D CAD programs. The whole point is to create this pathway of getting them excited, but then also showing them a pathway to the future. And now we're working in collaboration with a lot of educators, including our APS Foundation and Albuquerque Public School System, one of the largest education school systems in the country. And really, you know, the problem in education, I think that we face, that is faced by every school, teacher, district-wide, is this problem of what happens when the 3D printer isn't working, or what happens when you use grant money and buy some really cool 3D printer and then the teacher leaves and no one is left there that knows how to use it. And so we're trying to come up with really unique ways of creating resource centers and support centers, both online and in person, to help grow that knowledge and give support to educators. And so that's something we're in the pilot program with APS right now of creating those pathways and creating a resource library. We've been doing it individually with kids, and now we're working with groups of kids through educators and school districts, and just really working to bridge that gap. So for instance, this past May, Sandia National Labs again really wanted to do something for our Navajo students. And so we were able to work with them, ship them kits, and we had 18 Navajo students online where we taught them how to assemble 3D printers and use 3D printers, and then create projects that were really interesting to them. I think that we can all probably agree, like, 3D printing is so exciting for so many reasons, and it's such a great educational tool. So I'm curious and would love to hear more. Please put in the comments things that you're doing to connect 3D printing with education, whether it's with those young kids and that, you know, that K through 5 set where we're just trying to get them, you know, we're training up teachers. It's funny, Buzz, that you said that white is kind of like the popular color in education. And in my group, that is not true. You know, like, we love to use all different colors and especially multicolored filament. But when I work with educators, they often tell me their favorite color is white, because then they get out Sharpies and they let the kids color whatever they've printed with the Sharpies. So interesting to me. But I can understand how that would be a good thing. Anyway, so looking at how can we have impact, I'm especially interested, and that's why I love this 3D Printing for Women group, in advancing girls into tech, because I truly believe that our girls can't be what they can't see, and no kid can, but our young ladies really need us to help them generate excitement and get their hands dirty so that they can see that they can have an impact. I'd love to hear more about how you're having an impact and have discussion further with you about it, how you're empowering others. There's some great research out there of how we can take 3D printing and 3D CAD and really make a difference in our communities. I mean, everybody that's on here, the work that you're doing, so many people I've already heard you present in the past, or you presented today. I know that everybody's trying to do something that we call around here 3D printing for good. It's no surprise that many of us probably spent the pandemic printing thousands of face shields, right? And I think that the creatives that are in this group want to help empower others, and that we can look for opportunities around there and collaborate together to do that. So MK, you can kind of move on to the next slide if you would. And then just also really looking for mentors. If you're interested in mentoring young women, or you know of a company that you'd like to connect us with, I'd love to hear from you in regard from that. We're also specifically looking for more internships for high school age students and young college students to get involved in professional 3D printing and help raise an awareness that there are career paths here that can really make a difference. So with that, some crazy questions that I just put on here, we do not have to address those. Let's move on to the last one. And fantastic. So I also am the host of STEM Southwest podcast. Yes, there is a podcast, stemsw.com. Just a little plug for that. Would love to do interviews with many of you. If you're in the Southwest or connected to the Southwest in some way, and feel free to reach out to us. I would love to connect, and thank you for those of you who are messaging me directly, because I would absolutely love to do that. Thank you, Mary. Mary Tiemann is on here, and she's actually on our nonprofit board of directors, and she is on our ribbon cutting. So we have been doing this work since 2005 in our family garage. And after earning probably upwards of, I don't know, 20 or more robotics championship trophies, including global competitions, we decided it was time to move into a space and really have, we're setting up our own makerspace for the kids. But that's a topic for another day, because it's not necessarily about 3D printing. That is how we got into the 3D printing, because you can do a lot in 3D printing when you're building robots for competitions. So that's been an exciting part of it. So anyway, thank you all. And if anybody has questions or ideas, would love to hear them. And I love hearing your what got you hooked on this technology stories. So that's fun.
Shelley, just curious, before we go ahead, did you have a few websites that you also wanted to share?
Yeah, so we have our nonprofit organization, which is r4creating.org. And that is, that group of kids, my goal is to empower kids, not only to become the next generation STEM workforce pipeline, but to also take on important projects in the world. So it was a group of about 20 kids who 3D printed 6,000 face shields during the pandemic, and were first to deliver here in the Albuquerque metro area to hospitals like Presbyterian Hospital, as well as out on the Navajo Nation. And so just getting our kids into leadership. So R4 Creating, there you go. And offering resources to educators as well as anybody who's interested in getting kids involved. We've also found a real interest of what I want to call 3D printing hobbyists. So we are doing Saturday morning workshops where we are signing up both kids and adults. I call it kids and kids at heart, to learn more about 3D printing, because I think there's just so many opportunities, as I know you all can testify to. And then, so R4 Creating is the nonprofit, and begreaterthanaverage.org is our for-profit that is run by kids for kids, and doing a lot of, just this week, we're doing a drone building camp, a robot building, a 3D printer workshop for teachers, and a rocketry camp. So a little bit of everything, just to get kids interested and moving their knowledge. So.
And so, Shelley, what camps are you doing at Electric Playhouse?
Yeah, so in partnership with Electric Playhouse, we've had a great response over our robotics camps. Where we start, from scratch and teach kids how to build robots. Some of them with actual power tools. We're not doing that one at Electric Playhouse, but we've been really fortunate to partner with them. If any of you have been to Electric Playhouse or heard of it. But we're also, one of our hugely popular camps at Electric Playhouse is our Minecraft Exploded. And so the Playhouse is, you interact on the walls, and it's an immersive experience. So kids are getting to design and build a world in Minecraft and then play in it. So anyway, oh, Jed, I love it. Yeah, you can't say it out loud. Gotcha. All right, you're gonna love it. It's amazing.
I was blown away, and we live in Santa Fe where Meow Wolf gets so much attention. But what I loved about Electric Playhouse is that every time you did something in the room, it was different, and the gaming aspect to it. And so there was this like 2-story wall that was a video game, and kids had balls, and they were running and throwing the balls, to like do what you would do in a video game. I don't play video games. I mean, I guess they were like destroying destroying creatures or something, but they had to run around, and it was like so cool because they were actually getting, a digital combined with a physical experience. And I just thought it was the coolest thing. And, that combination of the digital with the physical. And I was really impressed. I wasn't expecting it when I went. It's like, oh yeah, I've been to Meow Wolf, and there they are, yeah. Yeah, it was so fun, and I was so excited to meet the guys there, and they're in Albuquerque, and so if you are in Albuquerque or visiting Albuquerque, you have to stop there. And they do, for adults, they do dinners, which is very cool. So we should probably, because we've had such a fun meeting, we should probably let Sherry Lassiter tell us about her program before it gets too late. And Sherry is the president of the Fab Foundation, which is a spinoff of the Center for Bits and Atoms at MIT, and one of my very best friends. And Sherry does amazing work, and she does so many things. But tonight she's going to talk about a program that the Fab Foundation initiated called Scopes. And anyway, Sherry.
Well, I actually am going to talk about two things, right? So just to give a little bit of background. Hi, everybody. I don't think I've met most of you. I just met Jed and Alec recently when I was out in Santa Fe. And Bez, I might have met you in Boston, I think. Yes. But for those of you who don't know me, actually, MK, you want to put the little presentation up? Okay. All right. Well, the image that you're looking at right now is of a shoe that was made, I think, by Reshape. But this is a phenomenon, sort of wearable 3D technologies and other 3D technologies that we're seeing more and more throughout our network. Just to give you a little bit of background, the Fab Lab concept, which is what we put Fab Labs out in the world, and we teach and educate through them and do innovations through them. This was really the brainchild of Neil Gershenfeld at the Center for Bits and Atoms. And Neil really is looking at the merging of physical science and computer science. So turning its into bits and bits into its, which I'm sure is near and dear to your hearts. Very interestingly, Neil has for many, many years been poo-pooing 3D printing. Right from the start, he's been was poo-pooing 3D printing. I don't know really why, but he really didn't believe in it. But obviously now he really believes in it, as the rest of the world does, because it's such an incredible technology and is doing such incredible things in manufacturing and personal expression, et cetera, et cetera. So, most of you are familiar with these kinds of makerspaces and fab labs. They're really digital fabrication environments. But really, for us, what they do is they allow anyone, anywhere to make almost anything that they can imagine, but also they teach the digital literacies that are going to be critical, in this 21st century environment. Next slide, MK. And so now we have about 2,000 Fab Labs in 125 countries. And so you add those to all of the thousands of makerspaces and hacker spaces, et cetera, and you've got this kind of distributed infrastructure now where that you can sort of ignite to do all sorts of amazing things globally. Business opportunities, educational opportunities, and sort of social impact opportunities. And so, we're finally getting to the point where we're a force. We're becoming a force. Next slide, MK. This is a project called Future Workforce Now. This was something that Sarah and I worked on together with the National Governors Association, so you may have heard about it. But we did a sort of a deep dive into the fourth industrial revolution. So what are the disruptive technologies that are affecting all of our industries now? And what are the skills and resources that we're going to need to support our economy and our industry in the future? And of course, in our research, 3D printing was one of the major 3D printing and additive manufacturing were amongst the technologies that really are horizontally affecting all industries, pretty much all industries. And so we feel that these kinds of digital literacies, all the digital literacies that go along with 3D printing and other digital technologies, are extraordinarily important, and we need to be working on developing them. So we have a few programs. Next slide, MK. We have a few programs within the Global Fab Lab network that actually teach these digital literacies, and at the same time, they stimulate innovation and new business and opportunities. So one is the Fab Academy, which you've probably heard about. Professor Gershenfeld teaches this from Cambridge or from Boston in a online where students and Fab Labs participate remotely, and then students work in work groups in their Fab Labs with mentors to create sort of whatever the assignment is this week, and then at the end of the course, it's a capstone project. And these capstone projects are creating new jobs and new economic opportunities. And the students that come out of this class with these skill sets are getting hired by corporations everywhere because they have the digital literacies that are going to be so important for the 21st century. Next slide, please, MK. This is a new course, and this is what I really wanted to be sure to talk about. This is very much related to what Ashley was talking about earlier. This is called Fab Academy. It's another course in the portfolio of courses that we offer, and it's really aimed at the intersection of biofabrication, digital fabrication, and design and textile, so fashion. And what it's trying to do, and this is related to you, Buzz, what it's really trying to do is change the fashion and textile industries because they are amongst the most polluting in the world, and they are in desperate need of innovation. And so what they're trying to do is teach a whole suite of really interesting really interesting and important new technologies, such that they can stimulate innovation in the in these industries. Just wanted to just say that some of the, just as an example, some of the things that they're teaching are, open source circular fashion, e-textiles. The one that's most relevant, I think, here is called computational couture, where you use parametric designs, et cetera, and 3D print what those designs are. That shoe that you saw right at the beginning, that's an example of it, of that kind of computational couture. Textile is scaffold, open source hardware from fibers to fabrics, wearables, soft robotics, all sorts of skin electronics, which also has to do with 3D printing as well. So it's an amazing course, and we're seeing absolutely stunning work come out of that, out of this particular course in this community. MK, if you don't mind, the next slide, please. Yeah, so just to say that, we are seeing a lot of business incubation and acceleration coming out of the network. As you probably know, both Ultimaker and Formlabs, which are 3D printing companies, came out of the Fab Lab network and came out of this work. And so we're not only working on the output, we're working on the input as well. And it does seem that there is a whole a whole universe, or not a universe, but a whole community growing up in the world around creating 3D printers as well as the products of 3D printing. Next slide, please, MK. Yeah, and so I think Buzz was talking about this, but during COVID, 3D printing was extraordinary. I think that this is a slightly old slide or a slightly old number, but we calculate about 50 million PPE products were made by the global network of Makerspaces and Fab Labs during COVID-19, and I would say easily 3/4 of those products were 3D printed. So things like shields, things like connectors and valves, and those sorts of products. And so, these 3D printing and 3D printing skill sets and the resilience that brings to a community is extraordinarily important. MK, next slide, please. And so what I'd like to sort of kind of end on is this project, which this is Scopes DF, scaling a community of practice for educators in STEM. Ghastly acronym, all my fault. I'm just not that creative, but at any rate, this was funded originally by Chevron and GE. This is a community of practice of educators in digital fabrication. And what we're finding now is that 3D printing, what happens on this site is that lessons and curricular activities and some professional development are all offered for free. So educators can go and download activities, upload activities, remix activities, and share them with the community. And what we've found is that, as I said, 3D printing is extraordinarily important. There are beautiful lessons online. One of the lessons that we learned actually it was before COVID-19, was that we really needed to, rather than sort of pre-package, a lesson that would fit all, one lesson fits all, that we really had to think about the cultural relevance of our lessons and of what we were teaching. And we had a couple of really wonderful, innovative educators like Natrice Gaskins and a few others that created lessons around cultural content that were really extraordinary. So Natrice took, say, the Black Panther movie, and she created a couple of lessons around designing in 3 dimensions and then printing in 3 dimensions, things like West African Adinkra symbols and other kinds of like beautiful fashion from Africa, using the designs of African artists and artisans, and that's been very, very popular online. We've also had a couple of collections from one from Qatar. Qatar has been incredibly active in this regard, and there's some beautiful 3D printing lessons online from Qatar, as well as from Bhutan. So we have, not only do we have them coming from the States, but we also have a global community starting to participate and think about this kind of learning, about this kind of literacy. And so I feel like for some of these 3D printing lessons, the thing that's so beautiful about them is it's not only about the design and it's not only about the printing, but it's about the whole computational environment, and brings in coding and everything else. So I would encourage you to go to Scopes. I'm going to put in the chat here a bunch of links for you to follow up on with, and take a look at some of the wonderful lessons that are online. If you are in a position where you're teaching kids, or if you're in a position where you'd want to share this with an educator, please point them in this direction. It's really extraordinary work, and I think the skills are so important for our kids. And so I think that's really all I want to say today, except I think, Sarah, you already promoted Fab 16 for us online this year, right?
Right. And well, we couldn't let that go by. But Scopes is a beautiful project, and what's very cool to me is it is curated, so the quality is really high, and I think the Fab Foundation has done an excellent job of being sure that the lessons that are up there are meaningful, that they are well thought out, that they are achievable, because sometimes lessons are achievable. And here's Fab 16. So part of Fab 16, and I put the link in fab16.org, will be virtual. From Santa Fe, Vince, one of the co-founders of Meow Wolf and former CEO, will be speaking at the conference, and there's Sherry, and but we are one of two, I think. There's Vince. There's Vince. A New Mexico connection, and but we are one of two host sites nodes in New Mexico for the U.S. I think there's like 25 worldwide local sites were distributed since the border to Canada is still closed, and we're not really sure if it'll be open by August. So we are trying to ensure that there's local activities, and so we will have a mobile Fab Lab rodeo, and yes, well, we're in New Mexico, we're in the West, we're down the street from the rodeo grounds. So next time you come, Lass, we'll go to the rodeo, and it'll be a lot of fun. But I think what is so powerful to me, and Buzz can probably attest to this when we went to the meeting in Boston, is the sense of community, is that the Fab community is so about advancing the work and doing good work, but also helping each other. And it's such a privilege to be part of this community and to work with Neil and Sherry and all of the other fabulous people in our network. I mean, it's pretty astonishing. It's a pretty astonishing group. So, the virtual one is easy to do from your living room, or if you want to come out to Santa Fe, our stuff, I'll send an e-blast to our group. Any other questions for Sherry before we start drinking wine?
Yeah, right.
That time. Is that?
Well, I can tell Buzz is on this coast because it's dark.
But
yeah, I got to work on the lighting next time.
Did you?
I didn't plan ahead for the room. I didn't want to get up to turn on the light. I guess I could, but that's
it's okay.
Not that technologically advanced, apparently.
And in September, our meeting will be on site at Westwind in Albuquerque. So we'll have two in-person meetings just because it worked out that way. And then in October, we'll have another virtual. New Mexico is a very big state, and getting people from throughout the state is always challenging. And we get so many great compliments on our programming that I still want people from, remind me, Jeanette, are you in Alabama or Arkansas?
I'm in Huntsville, Alabama.
Alabama. Okay. I knew you were in one of those A states.
Yep, so I'm right here on the other side in Huntsville. Yeah,
so we want people who join us from all around the country to still be able to tap in. And we get such great speakers, like Ashley, who was here from New York. And I'd really like to continue that. So October will be virtual again, but we'll have a couple of in-person ones, and encourage you all to fly out and join us. So if there aren't any other questions for Lass, I think we'll call it a night.
I have one quick question, but that's just because I'm a former television producer. And how'd you go from working in that world to doing what you're doing now? How did you make that transition?
Oh, that was a fun one. It was right around the time where they were going to put the big satellites up that had like 500 channels on it, and the whole business, the whole industry, really changed. So we went from, crews of 7 people who worked on a, $1.5 million budget or $2 million budget over 6 or 7 months to make a 1-hour documentary, to a one-man band with a little hand camera and a computer editing system, for like, $30,000 or $40,000 to make documentaries. And so it was a brutal time, and not a very interesting time, because people just wanted to get eye candy on the screen, and they didn't really want to think too hard about the content or deliver really good content. And so at that point I started looking around. And this really shows my age. I looked in the want ads in the paper, right, the classified ads, and I saw this crazy advertisement for a program manager for the Center for Bits and Atoms, and I'm like, what the heck is that, right? And so I showed up. Neil decided he wanted me to come in, and so I interviewed for the job, and I sat there for like an hour and a half with Neil. And I walked out of there and I thought, I don't think I understand a word that man said. And and that's the worst interview I have ever had. And then, of course, he called me back the next day and offered me the job. So it was crazy. But really what I wanted to do, I didn't want to tell the story anymore. I really wanted to be a part of making the story in science, because that was my beat, science and technology. So so that's kind of how I ended up there, sort of a strange route.
Very cool.
Well, it's really nice to meet you all. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Keep doing your great work. Alec, I hear you're setting up the new printer, the industrial printer. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, it hasn't been easy, but it's going along.
Well, it's a whole different level, when you go to. So Avi financed for me a printer from Nexer 3D, which was, Avi has been a very generous friend over the years. He bought 500 of my $80 augmented reality books for us to use at Rapid from SME, and to send to the press. And Avi is a really great friend. And, I've been raising money to get an industrial printer to put into our training programs. And Avi called and said, I'll fund this. Well, he didn't give it to me, but he financed it. So we can pay him over time, which is really nice, with no interest. So we're very fortunate, and it's very high speed. And Alec and I had a great training today with their service guy, and I think we'll be able to crank out some parts, and I think it'll be fun. So for those of you who don't know, we have a little
Sarah,
company that funds our nonprofit. MK?
I was wondering, Sarah, if you want to, I was wondering if you want to close on a last little plug for our grand opening.
Oh, well, sure. So I haven't put it up on the website yet, but newcolornetwork.com on the homepage, I'll have the schedule, and it's August. It coincides with the MIT annual meeting. And we're going to start on the 6th, and the mayor is going to give us the is going to present the Best in Show award for our art show. So, and this meeting will be on August 11th in person. So I hope you all have a great rest of your evening. And I'm sorry that Grayson didn't make it last, but he's asking about you. So good night. Sleep tight.